It's a pretty easy equation. If it's more efficient to move goods from A to B with an electric truck, then everyone buys one. If it's not, nobody would buy one. I respect Elon Musk, but number one, the truck he presented to the markets in the United States, unfortunately, is too long for Europe, so he needs to redesign that truck, and I haven't seen any design from Europe. Secondly, to sell a truck at the same price as a diesel truck, in my opinion, it's even for Tesla a little bit a push.
Thanks for joining us once again. Our focus today is the arrival of the European-ready Tesla semi-truck is already here. So contrary to what you saw from Martin Daum, this vehicle has actually been ready since day one and was a part of the initial introduction of Tesla, and we wanted to review this as well as the implications. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoyed the show, like some better ideas on investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. So today's show was sort of prepped by the discussion Mr. Daum had about what was going on in Europe with the Tesla Semi. As you may recall from the earlier talk, he pointed out that there were some issues with the Semi, and in particular, the lack of preparation for European regulations on width and height would be a problem for the Semi, and therefore it would likely delay its arrival. The other question, though, is what if since day one, Tesla has been involved with regulators to ensure that the Semi would be ready to go immediately. And so today we're choosing to include some video from the initial introduction of the trucks, and then some additional photos. For a long time, the vehicle had been referenced as simply the black matte finished vehicle, which it was, but it's kind of just a paint job that Elon/Tesla had chosen to do. Obviously, you can paint it any color you want, especially if you wrap the vehicle in the colors for your organization. So it's our assessment then that in terms of the prototypes, they've been ready for years and been in testing. You'll also note in the included photos that we have of the sort of baby or matte finished Semi pulling what looks like a regular sized trailer, but it looks sort of undersized, and that's because it doesn't have the flange on top of the truck that makes it more aerodynamic. But when we called up one of our trucker friends, he explained that the bridges in Europe standards are actually lower, so therefore the taller Semi would not work. Now, there is, I want to say, one slight fly in the ointment, and that is the fact that there are two types of vehicles. There are actually many types of semis, but two for these purposes. One is called a cab over. So you'll notice with most of the European vehicles that are 18-wheelers, Class 8 trucks, they use cab over technology where the driver is sitting over the front wheel. This actually facilitates more freight with less length. In the case of Tesla, it seems we have not seen a setup that's cab over for the Tesla Semi, even though I think it's possible, but there's a lot of surrender of aerodynamic qualities of that vehicle if they did that. So my take on this is we probably give up, let's say, a 5-foot by 10-foot up or down amount of boxes in terms of the length of trailers that this vehicle has. But the European authorities have actually made additions to facilitate the viability of the Tesla Semi in this case. So we will see from customers whether or not they have any concerns about the longer vehicle and whether the drivers have some concerns about it as well as we go forward. The next thing we wanted to review is tariffs. One of the conversations is, would the vehicle be produced in somewhere in the U.S., obviously in this case, the large manufacturing facility that's going in Reno, Nevada for it. And the answer would be that's an extreme possibility. I think definitely the test quantities of vehicles might come from there. But there is one problem with that, which is at least a 10% tariff, and it could be higher depending on how the EU responds to vehicles that are built elsewhere and then brought into the EU. Elon has stated that they're going to start building this vehicle in the factory that's in Berlin, and so therefore that's my expectation where we'll see scale production start to come from. So the next issue that we wanted to review here is the broad range of applications. So Daimler's indicated that what they typically do is they have about, let's say, 525,000 vehicles a year they sell globally in the truck space, and that diesel tends to be the best option in that regard. The issue that comes up, though, is that Tesla is choosing to concentrate its efforts on the Class 8 semi and not a whole range of trucks, as is the case with Daimler. It's an interesting circumstance because the lower unit count for the market segment that Tesla is going after will actually make it harder to make more money as the number of units rise. But for Tesla's business, the volume of cars and the revenue that comes from that will continue to dwarf anything going on in trucks. So I would not be surprised to see Tesla choose not to enter all those other segments. I would say the biggest surprise I've seen occur recently is that there's an entity called DHL that's headquartered, I believe, in Germany, either that or Amsterdam. And DHL recently took delivery of 10 vehicles in a test fleet. And the first trip that it did with its supposed 500-mile range vehicle is a 350-mile trip with that vehicle among the many test situations that are going on. So I'm bringing up the discussion of DHL for a number of reasons. Number one, DHL is one of the largest freight movers in the globe. Number two, they have hundreds of thousands of vehicles of different sizes moving that freight, and many of them are in that Class 8 size that Tesla is focused on with the semi. I'm also intrigued because over the years we've been tracking DHL's management process of their fleet, and what they've actually been doing is evaluating the Tesla Semi for purchase and applications within the United States, but also with an eye towards putting them into operations around the globe, especially in Europe. So I was kind of intrigued by this because we now have buyers with large footprints globally, for example, Tesla, for example, FedEx, for example, DHL, and all those entities are using their test experiences with the vehicle here in preparation for the use of that application in markets that are particularly stringent on how they want to move freight generally. The final sort of semi-update that we wanted to run by today is that there are certain entities that move goods daily, primarily, obviously, fleets related to grocery stores, but other entities like packaging companies, etc. All those transportation companies have a good sense of what the routes are they're going to be doing and how much range they need to do their jobs. I was impressed to see that there's a Norway entity that the CEO actually ordered 10 Tesla semi-trucks, and he pointed out that in essence, Tesla has a seeding process when it comes to his company and family's operations. In particular, he focused on the fact that there is the fact that his entire family already has Teslas means that his comfort level with both the company in general and then starting to work with the Semi in particular was solid because of the length of time he'd been working with Tesla products. So I was actually really impressed by this because it kind of shows that there's actually a built-in customer base anticipating the opportunity to work with Tesla in a different venue and form of the Semi. So don't be surprised if we see large numbers of orders in that regard. The other fascinating note here is that Elon keeps talking about a huge amount of orders for the Semi, but keeps not alluding to who that is and where that is. And I believe that a big part of that is the process that Daimler has been using, or Daimler Truck has been using, to sort of blunt Tesla and potentially impacting sort of how they're structured and implementing based on tactics used by competitors like Daimler. So don't be surprised if, I guess, we benefit from that, because the more information we provide that we have access to helps fill in the information gaps. But for the entities that are buying, they do get an opportunity to see all the numbers, drive the vehicles, etc., and therefore have an opportunity to determine viability. So finally, again, the conclusion here is that contrary to Daimler's perception, the Tesla Semi-European version is already approved and already viable and is set up specifically for the European market. Hence, that's why that's occurred. And we look forward to, therefore, a rapid expansion in the number of vehicles that hit the road. The one other note that I find strange, but I'm confident about this, is a 10% maybe rule. Since the vehicle arrived in 2017, the initial discussion was of ranges from 300 to 500 miles. Since then, all that's improved is everything. The chips that are being used, battery technology, etc., thermal management. So it's my belief that we're now above 600 miles in range for the biggest vehicle, possibly higher. And then same thing for the 300-mile vehicle, probably almost up to 400 miles in terms of its range. And that's actually kind of huge, particularly in very cold places, so they can handle the winter months without operational interrupts for customers. The final thing that we would like to cover today is, this obviously is a scale from Tesla of the Tesla Model Semi, and we also have sort of the mini version of it. We're actually going to do an auction. I've been watching a lot of video from the destruction created by Hurricane Helene in North Carolina, and my plan is to do an auction of several of the Tesla Semis, with the proceeds going to the folks that are in that terrible situation. So you can drop us a note at Teslafaninsight at Facebook and, bid, if you will, for auction. We're definitely going to send out at least 10 folks are going to get the smaller version, and we're going to have 4 folks for the sort of full-size version of the truck. And I also thought it was kind of interesting because notice the black matte finish on the Semi here, which would make it the European edition, but the tall flange that matches up with the truck, I think, makes it US, but it had been called a black matte truck when it came to the Semi. So we'd love to get your help to allow us to do some things in the North Carolina space of delivering relief to that group. At any rate, I want to thank you for joining us for the Tesla portion of our show. Now we move on to our health tips. The first one is, I just went to the store, got some Celtic salt yesterday. 3 types of magnesium in that salt make it superior to anything else you might be able to get. Also wanted to encourage you, if you drink water, I'm at about between, something like 64 ounces a day. It was recommended that you put some of the Celtic salt into that water that you're drinking, the bottle you're drinking from daily, as a way to boost the electrolytes in the process. Next, just a reminder, your 25 leg lifts a day, and don't forget 2 weeks of sleep, where every day you wake up and go to bed at the same night, for a 2-week period. once again, thank you for taking time to join us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, hitro, hoda hafez draziche, ni hao ma. And in Jamaica we say, enough respect, walk good, namaste, arrivederci, and thanks again. Look forward to our next conversation.